So we have got a huge new football show coming, and it's very exciting to be able to speak to somebody who probably knows and has watched more football than most in the past years. It's Rob Maclean. Rob, welcome. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Hi, Ali. Thank you. Nice to see you.
You too. You're looking well. How have you been?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. I mean, the fact that weather's been really good has kind of helped recently amidst all the chaos. But I think it's fair to say we're all missing our football really badly. I'm fortunate that I've been working in it for a long time. That my job is kind of going to football matches, and I'm really lucky that that's been the case. But I mean, you're a big football fan as well, and probably everybody watching this is. So, we're all missing it big time. But I think we're aware as well of bringing it back too quickly could be a nightmare, despite the fact we're all desperate to see that ball getting kicked again.
Absolutely. We don't want to bring it back too early and then have to stop it again. So we want to get into it the season and just keep going.
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously a lot of politicking going on at the moment around about the decision-making process in football. Everyone's having a go at everybody else. It's been a bit embarrassing, a bit shambolic, I think, in terms of what's been going on. And sometimes, you can miss the big picture, which is let's just get back playing as soon as we can, which might not be that soon, but make it safe for everybody to do so. That's got to be the most important thing. And obviously keeping Scottish football clubs alive in the process as well, because that's the big danger. With each passing week and month, it's going to be really difficult for lots of clubs to keep it going.
Absolutely. And we don't want anyone to be sitting back. We want to make sure that everybody's got the help that they need with everything, whether it be their health and their mental health as well, because it's difficult, it's struggling, because I guess our life as a footballer is completely different to you and I. Their lives and playing football every day, training every day, for that to just stop and then to just start straight away full force, that must be quite difficult, yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they're finely tuned machines, aren't they, footballers? So to be working out at home and doing programs that have been set up for them by the club. I mean, it's really difficult it must be to motivate yourself. You're never going to be doing what you'd be doing at the training ground on a sort of normal Monday, Friday, preparing for a game. So like you say, it's going to take a while for players to fully, after this is all over or beginning to be over, to get back up to speed again. So all these sort of things are a big deal. Plus football, it's a contact sport. All those dangers. I mean, you can't run about a football pitch and stay 2 meters away from everybody.
No. So, and not sweat.
I know exactly, so there's loads to be resolved in the next while. And actually, I'm happy just to let somebody else think about these things, experts in science and medicine and all the rest of it, because I just see so many problems and pitfalls of getting back playing again. But we've got to hope and we've got to believe that the best minds in the business will sort it out, and we will get going again. And we can't wait, whether it's to finish off this season or to just get started on the next one. Any football is going to be good football.
Yeah, it'd be great. I was watching, have you ever seen table header football? So it's like a table tennis table and then
yes.
Football. That was the most exciting 30 seconds I've had, watching two people play that the other day.
Yeah, I think I saw it maybe in the Manchester City documentary. I think I was watching that All or Nothing Man City thing, and I'm pretty sure they'd one of those tables. They've got everything in their facilities for fun between games. I saw them playing that, and they were almost diving headers across the table and stuff like that. It looked pretty exciting. And
you must have had really exciting times, because you've covered everything from Scottish Premier League to cup matches to UEFA Champions League. I mean, what's been some really special memories for you in football?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky, and because I've, I guess, been through a lot. It's sometimes difficult actually even to remember. Strange things happen and they sort of trigger memories and they bring games back and all the rest of it. But I mean, one of the best games I've ever been involved in wasn't so very long ago, because it was Scotland-England at Hampden when Lee Griffiths hammered in those 2 free kicks, and it was on ITV, but so ITV did commentator in England. I think Clive Tilsley was doing it in England, and I was commentating. Stuart McCall was alongside me doing it for STV. So when those Griffiths goals flew in, it was wow. You know, this is the best ever. This is euphoria. You know that. You know, and we were just going absolutely mental on the commentary, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, Stuart McCall's completely out of control. He hasn't done it that often, I don't think, and he didn't realise the disciplines. And you know, that's great because he just, and we were both screaming and shouting and all the rest of it. And then, of course, Harry Kane did what we didn't want Harry Kane to do right at the end and equalise. And it went from euphoria to heartbreak in a matter of a few minutes. But just bottle those few minutes of around the Lee Griffiths free kicks. And you know, that was fantastic. You know, it's difficult to imagine a better feeling than Scotland beating England, which we nearly did. And I'd actually been at Wembley in 1999 when Scotland were playing in a playoff and they'd lost. Don't know if you remember, they'd lost at Hampden. Paul Scholes scored 2 goals, and then they went down to Wembley. Don Hutchison scored. This is maybe stretching your lifespan.
I watched on video. I wasn't there for it live. I don't think.
No, but you know, again, that was. I mean, I was doing the radio commentary at the time on that game, and just to be able to say England 0, Scotland 1. I think I repeated the scoreline about 7 times. You know, when Don Hutchison scored, because I liked the sound of it so much.
Yeah.
And we very nearly. David Seaman had a great save from Christian Daly late on, and so Scotland very nearly sort of turned that situation around, which was amazing. So you know, just to name but 2, the Scotland-England fixture, you know, it doesn't happen very often. So it's really special when it does.
And I guess when you started out your life, I mean, did you want to be a journalist or a broadcaster or both? What got you into this line of work that you're doing just now?
I hadn't a clue, Ali, what I wanted to do at all. To the extent that, I mean, I come from Invergordon up in the wilds, and when I left school, because I had no clue what I wanted to do, I worked in the Invergordon distillery for 6 months, which some reckoned was a good grounding for journalism, because most journalists have that as a very serious hobby alongside their writing and broadcasting and everything. So I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I got the chance to be a school leaver trainee with the Highland News Group up there. So I got into journalism. They trained me in Newcastle for 6 months, which was a great experience. And that sort of got me started just on journalism, generally news reporting, mainly learning all the bits and bobs, you know, newspaper law and all that sort of stuff. Back up north. And that was me off and running, but because I'd been in Newcastle, I was kind of pretty bored with life in the Highlands, to be honest. It felt like it was slow motion after the sort of the buzz of Newcastle.
Yeah.
So I left and went to Aberdeen. Now, most people wouldn't consider Aberdeen as the bright lights, but when you come from Invergordon, let me tell you, that is pretty exciting. So I went down there, didn't have a job, did various temp jobs and things, drove a laundrette van, delivering stuff around Aberdeen, managed to convince the company that I knew my way around Aberdeen, even though I'd never been there before. So it was doing little jobs like that to keep me going. And then I worked with a freelance news agency, which was covering like high court murder trials and all that sort of stuff. And you know, basically preparing the story for every newspaper from the Sun to the Telegraph, radio, television. So that was really good experience. And it coincided with North Sound Radio starting off. That was 1981. These are years that mean absolutely nothing to you.
No, they do. That was the year my brother was born.
That's okay.
The year before my brother was born.
Yeah. So 1981, so North Sound Radio started, and I was hired as a news reporter. And the head news guy on the first day said, "Who likes football?" I put my hand up, and he said, "Right, you're the commentator." You know, that was it. That was the job interview. So Aberdeen, the first big game I was involved in, Aberdeen played Ipswich Town, who were then UEFA Cup holders. Aberdeen beat them. And then 2 years later, they won the European Cup Winners' Cup in Gothenburg. You know, so, you know, Alec Ferguson was in charge. That was the answer to what was happening at that stage. I was just really fortunate, timing-wise, to be there at that time. And it all coincided. We were the local radio station. Yeah. I was traveling all around Europe. And then they beat Real Madrid. Well, almost the date is pretty much around now of that game back in '83. So that's I can't work it out. That's how many years ago is that? 37 years ago.
I was born in '85 and I'm 35.
Two mathematical brains at work here.
Oh, so
Believe it
I'm
or not, that's very
35
sure.
and I was born in 85. So what year?
That'd be right. 83, so 37 years ago. Yeah, well done. We got that one. We got that one sorted. So, you know, I mean, Real Madrid probably weren't as powerful as they are now, but they were still one of the best teams in Europe. And actually, I saw a league table the other day of top European teams, and it was 1984, and Aberdeen were ranked the best team in Europe. You know, everyone, all the Bayern Munichs and Real Madrids and Barcelonas, and all these teams were below them. Aberdeen were the best team in Europe at that stage because the season after they won the Cup Winners' Cup, they reached the semi-finals again, lost to Porto. So Aberdeen were, you know, not just beating the Old Firm regularly in Scotland at that stage, but you know, they were ranked the best team in Europe. So to be there in Gothenburg that night was, you know, I was a kid at the time, you know, commentating, and I probably didn't really appreciate it at the time. And it's only when you look back and the years clock in, all those 37 years clock in, that you think, wow, you know, not only is that never going to happen again, but, you know, incredible that it actually happened back then to a club from the northeast of Scotland. It was amazing.
So what happened when you were over there? I mean, can you remember, was there a big party? Were you involved in it, or were you tired from commentating all day and went back to your
hotel? I was very tired. I was so tired. I limited myself to about 5 bottles of champagne, I think, in the evening. And I seem to remember my expenses claim when I got back to North Sound Radio was a bit difficult to persuade them about, because there were some pretty big figures on it. But ultimately, you know, because North Sound had combined with all the independent radio stations in Scotland that night, so all 6 of them there were at the time. So it went out, Radio Clyde, Radio Forth, everybody. So it got a really big audience, and so everybody was happy. But what happened, you know, subsequently was when Aberdeen came back, there was the whole open top bus thing through Union Street in Aberdeen, and I think they reckon there was about 100,000 people out on the streets. So it was absolutely mobbed. And I, having come back from Gothenburg with my hangover, I was straight into the radio car behind the open top bus doing the live commentary on all the scenes in the city and all the rest of it. So it was mobbed, it was chaotic. And then it got to the stage where there were so many people on the streets that it all ground to a halt. So I'd kind of said all I could possibly say. I'd painted all the pictures and described what was happening. So I thought, right, I've got to get out of the car and speak to some people just to keep this broadcast going, basically. So I'm speaking to people, but we're live, so I've got to choose them really carefully.
Yes.
Which I was doing. And then, so I'd spoken to a few people. Then I spotted this wee girl on the pavement, and I said to her, what's your name? Mary Ann. How old are you? I'm 12. I'm skiving school to be here and all that sort of stuff. Where are you from? From Kitty Brewster, an area of Aberdeen. And I said to her, who's your favourite player? She said, Gordon Strachan. And I said, why is that? And she looked at me and she said, because he's fucking fantastic. and that was live. And
you're not expecting a wee 12-year-old girl to say that, are you?
No, exactly. I thought I was playing safe, but my career almost ended at that point. You know, you see your career flashing before your eyes at that point. And there was no delay button or anything that sometimes exists on these occasions. So when it went out live, so that was an unexpected moment in the aftermath.
But I guess with all of it, and I appreciate, obviously, we don't want swearing on air, but I think people will understand in the moment that there's just so much excitement, they would forgive it.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. That was so spontaneous and so euphoric. And, you know, she was basically looking at me saying, are you daft? You know, why wouldn't I think he was my favourite player? Because, you know, and it's funny, someone like Gordon Strachan, obviously, knowing him back then as a player and then sort of following him through the years and all the rest of it. When he was manager of Southampton, I kept in touch with him, and he sort of fed me stories now and again. I remember Neil McCann signed for them, and at one point Antti Niemi, who was the Rangers keeper, he joined Southampton, and so I had a little dialogue going with him. But in addition to for him giving me information, he insisted that I sent him DVDs of Chewing the Fat, because he was missing Scottish television and Scottish comedy and all that sort of stuff. So I was sending him tapes of Chewing the Fat, you know, so that he could keep in touch with Scottish banter down in Southampton. So it was quite funny.
That is brilliant. I mean, that's not a lot to ask of you, is it, really?
I think I did pretty well in the deal, to be honest, getting some stories out of them. So that worked well.
So I guess over the years, you will have sort of started to create relationships with lots of players, managers. Who do you have in your little black book? Is there any names out there that you think, yeah, I'm really chuffed I've got this one?
That's a toughie. But I mean, you know, I'm fortunate that I've worked with a lot of really great people in football, and it's become the norm. Like I was 5 years at Setanta, and I had sort of Terry Butcher and John Hartson in the studio, and Craig Burley was there for a while, and Billy Dodds, and these sort of people. You know, in recent times, I've been working with Ali McCoist and Chris Sutton, commentating for BT Sport and things like that. And these are all great guys. These are great football people, and obviously you spend a bit of time with them away from the broadcast as well. So, you know, you get to know them a bit better. And I guess, you know, you tend to take all that for granted, that you're spending time with, you know, special people. But I mean, who they are matters to me a lot more than what they are, to be honest. You know, you know, because, you know, there are loads of people in football, as in any sector of life, that you might have to work with, but you probably wouldn't choose to spend any more time with them, ideally. That you pick and choose as you go along. But as you can imagine, I've had a fair bit of fun with Ali McCoist along the way, doing some sort of European trips with him and all the rest of it. It is never a dull moment with him. And when you're commentating with him as well, because it's all very relaxed and we get on really well together, and the banter sort of flies back and forth, you sometimes forget that you're actually working at a football match, and you're actually thinking that you're leaning on the bar with a pint in your hand, you know. So that you can almost get too relaxed in those sort of situations. But no, it's great fun, and sometimes people take football a bit too seriously, because ultimately it is a game and it is fun and we do enjoy it and all the rest of it. But people get a bit hot under the collar at times. But no, I've had some great fun along the way. It's been brilliant.
Is there any times that you can remember where, like, you know, when you go away on holiday and someone forgets their passport, or somebody loses something, or their bag's got lost, or there's a funny story? Is there anything that's ever happened in any of your trips with anyone that you think, oh, can't believe that happened?
Well, I mean, footballers forgetting passports is fairly regular, to be honest. I mean, I do wonder, you know, well, I kind of know what happens to footballers when they stop playing. They continue to need led by the hand, because when they're playing, you know, somebody in the club, like the kit man or whatever, he has all the passports. He keeps all the passports
Really?
for them when they're going on trips and stuff like that. So then footballers never handle a passport when they're going on a football trip at all. So cut to age 35, and they're, you know, going to Mallorca with the family. You know, I know loads of footballers who take 10 years maybe to adjust to the fact that they need to have their own passport in their pocket, otherwise they can't get on the plane, they can't go abroad and all that sort of stuff, just because it's been done for them for so long. I mean, footballers are absolutely pampered, as you know, and so I guess in all sorts of ways, the adjustment process is massive. You know, when you actually stop playing. So I guess there have been loads of instances where players have been looking blank at the check-in, saying, you know, passport, what's that?
That's hilarious. Never thought of it like that before. So you've commentated on a huge array of games from all different sort of levels. What's been a sort of fond memory for you of commentating on a particular player? Is there any players that you think, oh, I really enjoy commentating on them? They're really great with the ball, or is there anything that stands out to you?
Well, in terms of players that have played in Scottish football, I think Henrik Larsson is one that very quickly comes to mind. I mean, he had 7 magnificent seasons in Scotland. Having arrived from Feyenoord, Celtic paid next to nothing for him. It was the steal of all time, really. And he went on to play for Man United, Barcelona after that. But I mean, that guy was just unbelievable, what he did on the football pitch. You know, the number of goals he scored, his intelligence, and then. But when you interviewed him, I don't know if how many times you've seen interviews with Henrik from back then. But you know, he wasn't the most exciting in an interview situation. Let's say that. Lovely guy, but he just couldn't be arsed, really. I mean, he just didn't want to do it. You know, he spoke on the pitch. That's what he did. But yeah, to be part of Scottish football during his spell here was really good. I mean, you know, Rangers signed great players as well. I mean, there was the Graham Souness revolution, and when David Murray was in charge, and Rangers were outbidding the top English teams. So they were bringing, the England goalkeeper Chris Woods, fullback Gary Stevens, Trevor Stephen, Ray Wilkins, Gaza was there, at a certain time, and Brian Laudrup, and all these sort of guys. I mean, it's hard to contemplate now that was happening then, because Rangers were on a similar sort of financial footing. So, and then there was Dick Advocaat's Dutch contingent with Arthur Newman and Ronald de Boer. Frank de Boer was there for a while, Michael Moles, Barry Ferguson obviously was an outstanding Scottish player in that team. Claudio Reyna, US World Cup star, all the rest of it. So, there have been so many glittering talents in Scottish football, but I mean, Henrik Larsson, I just loved the way he went about his business. He didn't make a great fuss about anything. He just scored goals, and he scored them for fun. And it was a brilliant time, watching him doing what he did. And I think anyone, Celtic fans of that time, will feel privileged that they were able to watch him up at close quarters, because he was special.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, you were commentating on the game where Celtic managed to prevent Rangers from winning 10 in a row. It would have been been 9.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there've been quite a few. It's funny, sometimes you flick on one of these old classic games, because that's all the football we can watch at the moment, because there's nothing happening, and you flick it on and you're like, wait a minute, who's that commentator? He's hopeless. Oh, it's me. Because there was one. The other one that was on recently was the Motherwell 6 Hibs 6. That amazing game from, I think it was 2010, where Hibs were 6-2 up at Fir Park, and then Motherwell scored another 4 goals, the last of them being in stoppage time. And actually, somebody had sort of said to me, "What did you say on the commentary when Lukas Jutkiewicz scored the 12th goal of the night?" And I said, I can't actually remember. So I flicked on the tape just to have a look, and the answer was I absolutely shrieked. It was just because it was just such a ridiculous game. 12 goals, 6 of them each. So it's good to look back on some of these amazing games. Helicopter Sunday, when Rangers beat Dunfermline 6-1 at Ibrox, and Celtic won 4-0 down at Kilmarnock, thinking that was going to be enough. That was the famous day that Chris Sutton accused Dunfermline of lying down to Rangers, so again, that was a really special thing to be part of. But it also just gets the juices going, Ali, and you sort of think, well, I just can't wait to get going again. I just can't wait to get back to football again, because there'll be loads of brilliant stories to come. At the moment, all we can do is kind of look back on some of these classic games of old.
Which is really nice, to be fair. Having a look on social media and Twitter, I haven't seen so many moments in different footballers and different football clubs are showing their greatest moments, which is actually quite nostalgic. It's quite nice, and it's quite history-wise, it's quite good for the younger generation to see moments that they weren't have been alive for.
I haven't seen St Mirren's League Cup win being shown recently. That can't be too far around the corner, can it?
Well, that was St Mirren's Day, which was St Patrick's Day, so the 18th of March, was it? So that's been 2013. We won that. No,
I know, but it hasn't been re-shown, has it? Has that been shown recently? I thought that might be
on the telly. I don't think so. No. It's St Mirren, though.
I know, but I would have thought Stephen Thompson, with his powers of persuasion at the BBC, might have got that one re-shown.
Maybe we'll give him a wee nudge, see what we can do, because it's brilliant.
I know, but all these sort of special games, St Johnstone, I think that was 2014 when they won the Scottish Cup, and of course Tommy Wright has just recently vamooshed after his incredible spell as manager there. So games like that, I mean, God, that made him the best manager in St Johnstone's history in one fell swoop, having done what they'd never done before, which was to win the Scottish Cup. So it's really nice to reflect, and all the clubs have had their moments. Ross County and Inverness Cally Thistle, have had their sort of special moments as well. In addition to all the sort of big matches you're talking about, some of the Rangers and Celtic successes, which tend to be pretty regular.
Absolutely. It's just so lovely to see. It's so nice to see so many people celebrating, but as you say, it'll be good to get back to actual football. Has there ever been a game that you've gone to commentate on and you've been nervous about? What's anything that's been sort of quite big in your career and you thought, oh, gosh, I'm going to have to do a lot of preparation for this one, and you get the butterflies? Or is every game like that for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, just the minute you say that, one match that comes to mind, and I suppose you do get you do know, you're not sitting with a pint in your hand, so you know you're about to work, so you do get a buzz. I think the more preparation you do, the more relaxed you feel. You feel as if you're ready to go and you're ready just to launch into the game, and that's kind of what it's all about. And you get swept along in the atmosphere and everything. I remember doing the commentating on Scotland against France in 1998. This brings a tear to my eye, and probably every Scottish football fan's eye as well, because 1998 was the last time we were at a major finals. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I think 22 years ago. So I was commentating in the Stade de France in Paris, Scotland against Brazil. Incredible. You had to sort of pinch yourself to think that this was actually happening. And I think I sat in the commentary box for quite a while before the match started, and I was just looking around me. I was just taking it all in, to be honest. But that probably did build up the nerves a wee bit, just because I just didn't plant myself down when the game started. I was there for a while. I just wanted to. It was a sunny day, and it was full, and the Tartan Army were there, and the Brazilian fans were so colourful as well, and all the sort of fat cats were there in their suits, their Armani suits and everything, in the deer seats. And but on the way to the game, Craig Brown was the manager of Scotland then, and we were in a minibus on the way to the game, full of all the commentary team and the production people and all the rest of it. And when I was on my way, I phoned Craig Brown on his mobile, and he answered. And as you do, this is the build-up to the most important game. At that stage, the most important game of his life, and maybe it still is. And he had time for me, 15, 20 minutes with me. I asked him about it. He told me his team, told me the tactics they were going to play, all their sort of set-piece plans against Brazil, how they were going to cope with Ronaldo and all the superstars and all the rest of it. I just kind of thought, brilliant, what a guy, to have time for me. And what that did, of course, was it gave me a lot of really useful information, so that when I went into the game, I kind of knew what Scotland were going to do, and that made me feel quite confident about the way the game was going to unfold and all the rest of it. But of course, at one point when John Collins scored his penalty, I was looking up at the scoreboard, Scotland won, Brazil won, and I thought, right, hold it right there. That'll do. We'll take a point. That'll be brilliant. And of course, there was a Tom Boyd own goal to follow, and we didn't win the game, but it was, wow, that was a special day.
It's incredibly special that someone of that caliber, about to go into a really special game like that, has the trust, I guess, in you to be able to have that conversation in advance of the game. Because, you wouldn't, but there's some people out there who might just decide to leak that and say this is what they're going to plan to do in the game, and that could have changed everything. Yeah,
and especially these days with social media, it's so easy to do something like that. So I guess that's you do build up trust with people over a period of time. They know they can tell you something. They know you'll keep it to yourself, because if you don't, then that'll be the last confidential conversation you ever have with them.
Yeah, but still amazing. So the experiences that you've had have been phenomenal. You've been all over the world. Where's your sort of favourite place that you've ever been? It could have been somewhere in Scotland, your favourite ground that you've been to, or it might have been abroad. Is there anywhere, or maybe it's Brazil? Maybe when the Brazil game, maybe it was back in Paris. But is there somewhere that you just think, this is just brilliant? It could have been a Killy Pie. It could have been anywhere.
Well, what's great about the football business is just the opportunity to travel, and I've been really lucky, and I've been to so many places. I've been to lots of places that I probably would never have gone to had it not been for football. I went to the 2002 World Cup, even though Scotland weren't there. I was part of the BBC Network commentary team, and that was in Japan and Korea. So, had that not happened, I probably would never have gone there. So I had 3 weeks in Seoul in Korea, doing loads of games like China against South Africa. That was it. Those were a major research job, those games. And then I had a week in Japan, and that coincided with England playing Brazil in the World Cup quarterfinals of that summer. And I was sitting in a stand full of England fans, and so Michael Owen scored. They all went up. They were all whooping and shouting and everything. And I'm like this. And I thought, right, I'd better go up as well and look as if I'm really pleased as well, because otherwise they kind of outnumber me about 10,000 to 1. So then Brazil equalised, and I don't know if you remember, but Ronaldinho scored that crazy goal from nearly the halfway line, went over the top of David Seaman, and so they won. And of course, at that point, I'm almost jumping up, that wee Scotland-England rivalry thing. But I thought, nah, I better just stay exactly where I am, because they're not in good fettle at the moment, the England fans around me. And then afterwards, the BBC producers got me to interview the England fans about going out of the World Cup. And I was trying to put on my best home counties accent, to disguise the fact that I came from north of the border. It went well for a wee while, and then one of them said, "You're a jock. I bet you fucking enjoyed that, then, didn't you?" And I said, "No, not at all, my chap. I'm like you. I'm distraught. England are out of the World Cup." And then, funny story actually that night, because the BBC had planned this little party at that stage of the World Cup for all the people behind the cameras and in front of the cameras and all the rest of it. A big crowd of people. A function with some food and drink and all the rest of it, and then there was a karaoke. And so I don't know how it happened, but I went up to sing with Alan Hansen, and we sang we sang Flower of Scotland, and you can imagine how that went down on the night of the day that England had been knocked out of the World Cup. I have to say that Alan Hansen didn't know many of the words. Thankfully, I had a few verses tucked away, so I was able to kind of keep him going, and he was following my lead. But generally, Flower of Scotland didn't play well in front of an audience that was predominantly English that night.
Who chose that song?
I think we may have been baited by somebody else to do it. And yeah, it was a deadly double act, Alan Hansen and myself, and we sort of felt our way through it. There's quite a lot of verses in Flower of Scotland. I hadn't realised, but I certainly knew more words than he did. But generally speaking, it didn't make the mood any happier among all the distraught England supporters.
You managed to get home okay though, so.
Yes, I did, and it was just a great experience to the culture, going to Japanese baths and things like that. Going out, Gary Lineker was part of that BBC squad, and he played in Japan years ago, and so he took us to this restaurant. We ate Kobe beef, which is amazing. So we were all sort of around a counter, and he paid for dinner, which was really nice of him. But he knew everybody as well, and he knew what to order and everything, and it all just turned up, and it was cooked in front of you, and that was amazing. I won't tell you about my naked bath with Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and I think Alan Hansen might have been there as well that day. But we had to get involved in all the customs and cultures of Japan. But generally speaking, it was a great experience.
Now I always imagine this, and I could be completely wrong, but it's probably just from the adverts, but does he always go about with a packet of Walker's crisps or no?
He doesn't actually, funnily enough. I don't think unless he's getting paid massive amounts of money, he probably doesn't eat them at all. But when he's on camera and he's doing a commercial, I think that's probably about the only time. But no, he's done rather well for himself. I was going to say to you, another place that I really liked was Seville, when Celtic. I was with the BBC at the time, and they covered most of the games on the way to the UEFA Cup final. I mean, that was incredible. Martin O'Neill's team, and they beat Stuttgart and Celta Vigo. They beat two English teams, Blackburn and Liverpool, on the way to the final. They played Porto in Seville, and there were, tens of thousands of Celtic fans. It was absolutely madness there. And it was kind of too busy, really, to be able to see my way around greatly. But when I was there, I thought, wow, this place looks really nice. I can't really have a good look at it now. And what I did, I decided to go back because I liked the look of it. I went back in October. My wife Pauline and I, we went back and had a lovely holiday there. So it's that sort of, sometimes it just gives you a wee look at a place and you think, wow, that looks really nice, and went back. So I've seen so many corners of the world. It's been great. I love traveling. The actual mechanics of traveling I don't enjoy greatly, but actually being different places, food and drink and culture and all that sort of stuff. Bit of kill you.
So have you had to learn different languages along the way?
No, I'm still struggling with English, to be honest, Ali, as you've probably noticed. But no, I probably should have done, but I kind of feel bad about that. In fact, during lockdown, that's probably what I should be doing is learning another language. But and that can be frustrating, and you feel a bit stupid, to be honest, sometimes when you go to these countries. I mean, I've been to Italy a lot on holiday, and more recently maybe Spain as well. And you know, when people master English, you feel a bit inadequate when you can't sort of clamber your way around their language. So yeah, so maybe that's one. Maybe you've inspired me to learn a language. rather than binging on Netflix, which is how I'm spending most of my time.
What are you watching on Netflix at the moment? Is there a series or anything that you're going through?
Well, I'm at the end of season 4 of Better Call Saul at the moment. Having watched, it's obviously the prequel to Breaking Bad, but I've seen Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul is great. I'm also watching The Last Dance at the moment, which is all about the Chicago Bulls basketball team. With Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen and all these guys, which is really good. And I think the best thing I've seen in lockdown probably was Ozark. I'd already seen the first 2 seasons of it, and I watched the 3rd season. And it is, I don't know if you've seen Ozark with Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. Have you?
Only finished it 3 days ago.
And what did you think?
I think it was a wee bit slow to start for me. Took me a couple of episodes to get into it. I think sort of halfway through the first series, I then got into it. By the end of it, I want there to be another series. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to do a wee name drop here because I think the acting in it is absolutely brilliant. And Laura Linney, I had a holiday in New York in January. Went to Broadway and saw Laura Linney in a Broadway show, and it was a one-woman show. She did for an hour and a half, and how she remembered her lines, goodness only knows. As somebody who's in my career sometimes had to remember things to do to camera. I mean, an hour and a half was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, she is absolutely brilliant, and I think in Ozark, the development of her character, how she starts off being very sort of straight-laced and sensible, and and how it all changes. I better not give too much away in case some people watching this haven't seen it yet. But do you agree with me that has that been a really good thing to watch?
Yes, it's been brilliant. I watched Scandal just before it, which I was in love with. So have you seen that?
I haven't seen that, no.
Oh, it's brilliant. So it was almost as good as that. So Ozarks wasn't quite as good for me. So if you like Ozarks, I think you'll like it.
Right, good. I'm writing this down. So I'm learning a language and I'm going to watch Scandal. Okay, that's 2 things to do. And
you've been out, I saw that you were out hiking at 8 a.m. in the morning. What brought that on?
I know, exactly. No, I'm actually doing a lot of walking. I sort of, where I stay is very much out of town, and just not far beyond my back garden is a really nice walk. And so I can do about 20k quite easily. Which is quite nice. So I've been out and about doing a lot of walking, and that the one you're talking about, that was to do with the Chris Boyd charity and sort of mental health stuff. And so I mean it's quite good, just to get involved. There's a lot of good stuff going on at the moment. There's a lot of good fundraising and charity awareness and things like that, which is really good. So I mean I'm very happy to get involved in that. The only thing that didn't make me happy was that I was out at 8 o'clock in the morning, which was pretty dashed early, to be honest.
I was at
the scrambled eggs by about 9:30. Sorry, Ali.
I said I was quite impressed by the smile on your face. You looked like you were loving life.
Oh well, I am loving life. I mean, I don't know. I get all romantic, when I'm out and about. All the bird song and the beautiful scenery, and it's we live in an amazing country, and sometimes we don't really appreciate it enough. And especially because the weather's been good recently. That's been fantastic. But let's get back to some rainy days and some football.
Yeah, I guess. I love a pie. I just want a pie. A pie or I want to go to a football match and have some bovril.
I know, bovril, dodgy bovril. And is the killie pie, you mentioned the killie pie earlier, is that your favourite?
I think so. I'm not into hot dogs at a football game. It's got to be a pie.
I quite like a sausage roll. Is that controversial? Sometimes when I'm at Ross County, I get, because I know a few guys there, they bring me a sausage roll. I quite like a sausage roll. Sometimes I wonder what's in a pie.
No, bovril in a pie. Steak pie. Not a mutton pie. Steak pie.
No. Quality lean steak.
Yeah. It's got to be done. Yeah, and a Bovril to heat you up at half time. Have you ever been at a match where you've been just Baltic, so cold that you're struggling to try and get your words out?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you're wearing so many layers that you can barely move. You know, you're struggling to get yourself turned and all that sort of stuff. And gloves, woolly hat, everything. Yeah, I mean, I hate I'm miserable when I can't stay warm in that sort of situation. And yeah, I mean, lots of football matches. I mean, I suppose the seasons have changed recently, haven't there? I mean, the winters have been much milder recently. Yep. But I certainly remember. I remember, commentating on a BBC Live game at Dens Park, and it was absolutely, it was getting close to being abandoned. I can't remember the match; maybe eventually was abandoned or something like that. And Chick Young was the reporter on the touchline at the time, and the camera kept cutting to him every so often, and every time we went back to him, there was another layer of white, sort of absolutely sort of covering him and everything. And I was loving it. I was absolutely loving the fact that he was outside and I was in the relatively warm commentary box at the time.
Is there quite a lot of banter when you do your commentary with anyone else that's around you or with the people that you're working with?
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, I do like the natural side of things. I mean, I was talking about, working with Ali McCoist and sometimes forgetting the fact that you're working, and it just feels like you're having a good football chat in the bar. Good laugh with Chris Sutton and people like that as well. And yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it should be really natural. I think it's really good when it comes over that way, and it's not too sort of organised and structured and planned. And because you never know what's going to happen in a football match, so it should kind of sound like that as well. That it just kind of evolves and it just explodes into life.
And I guess you must have been to some cool parties. You were talking about some of the parties when you were abroad, but I guess with Sports Scene and the other shows that you've done, has there been like end of year parties where it's got quite good fun?
Yeah, I mean, they used traditionally at the BBC, they used to have a party after the Scottish Cup final, because that was the last game of the year. There was a BBC club at that point, and they used to have a sort of, I like a wee sort of karaoke session, and they used to have a sing-song after that, and it was good. Everybody kind of got together at that stage, but that seems to have sort of fallen away a bit. But there were some good sing-songs, and it was good for team spirit as well.
Absolutely. Is there a player that you've watched and thought at the start of his career he's going to be phenomenal, and he has?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Barry Ferguson is one that would come to mind. Kieran Tierney as well. That Kieran Tierney was in the Celtic team very young, and you just thought immediately, wow, this guy just has no fears of anything. He's not overawed. Barry Ferguson would have been the same. I'm trying to think what age he would have been. He probably was maybe 17 or 18 when he broke into the Rangers team. And he just, I guess both those players just always had that feeling that they had a right to be there. They weren't overawed by the experience. They thought that was their stage. That was the stage they would perform on. And you kind of always knew that barring injury or something like that they would make it. And they both did. I mean, it's always really gratifying to see Scottish teams producing good young players, because there probably hasn't been enough of that in recent times. Maybe things are turning, because there are now some good young Scottish players who've gone to England and making an impression, like John McGinn, who you know well, Stuart Armstrong, John Fleck at Sheffield United, Ryan Fraser at Bournemouth, there's talk of him maybe moving on to one of the bigger clubs. So that's quite an encouraging development, I think.
Yeah, I think the academies are going to be proving quite important now with the money situation at a lot of different clubs. To have a good academy to come through from your team in the lower leagues as well would be quite good to see some Scottish talent coming through. I think that it's difficult this time. It's really difficult, but it might produce some really exciting things.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see. I think clubs need an identity, and some of the Scottish clubs have more of that than others when you look at who's playing for them. And some teams go through stages where there are actually no Scots in the team, far less any locals in the team. So I think that's really important, because I think fans going to games identify with players who've come through the system, and they get a lot of satisfaction from the fact that that's happened. And obviously clubs are investing a lot of money in academies as well. So even from a business point of view, you're wanting a feedback, you're wanting a rewards for all the money that you've ploughed into it. So yeah, hopefully that happens more and more.
And have you managed to see, I was thinking about this because there have been quite a few St Mirren games. One of my favourite games was when Scotland played Albania at St Mirren Park, and it was the women's football. And I found that so exciting. Have you had the fortune of sort of commentating or going to any of the women's football?
I haven't as yet, but I try to follow it as closely as I can. I mean, I've obviously worked with the likes of Lineker and Leanne Crichton on the sort of media side of things. But yeah, I try to see what I can, and I mean that's a really developing situation. I mean, Lineker is great; she really knows her stuff, and you can see the improvements that are being made, and also that there's much more of a response to what they're doing in terms of people going to games and the backing they're getting quite rightly and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just the more women that can be involved in football, both at that level and also just participating from an early age is great. I mean, it just should be same for everybody lumped in together. There shouldn't really be any division. So I think we've gone a long way in that regard.
Absolutely. Has there ever been a game that you've watched and thought, I wish I was there commentating on that? I wish I was doing that game.
Yeah, loads. I mean, when I'm not working at it myself, I watch a lot of football. I like watching, some of the Champions League football. Some of the Champions League just is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, you just see constantly all these remarkable sort of games. And there was one, was it Bayern Munich gave Tottenham an absolute roasting recently, I think it was, in London. I think they scored 7 goals against them or something. I watch some of those games, and I do find myself sort of thinking, God, because these are the easy games to do when the action is happening all the time, loads of goals, loads of incident. It's the sort of dull nil-nils. That's when you really work for your money, because you're talking a lot and there's not a lot happening. Basically, you're trying to sort of keep it alive, bring it back to life if possible.
I guess there must be moments where you're thinking, someone do something, please.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been there, done that. Remember a Scottish Cup tie I did at Gayfield, Arbroath 0, Queen's Park 0 it was, and the sort of it was about 70-mile-an-hour gusts blowing around the ground, right down at the seafront and everything. Games like that. I think it might have been live on the BBC at the time from the early rounds of the Scottish Cup. And these are the ones that I wake up in a sort of cold sweat, remembering, trying to keep something like that going, where it's the worst game you've ever seen.
And thinking about the different managers that you've got to speak with, who's been your favourite in a work sort of relationship? Who do you find is really easy to talk to, is really informative, really helpful when you call them? Is there anyone that stands out to you as a manager that you think, yeah, I really enjoy working with them?
I think lots, Ali, would be the answer to that. I mean, I've got to know quite a lot of managers. I mean, I don't know Steven Gerrard so well at the moment, but I'm really impressed with the way he talks. I love listening to him talking football. Neil Lennon's done an amazing job. I know him obviously from a couple of spells at Celtic and as a player as well. And he's a really good guy and an interesting guy to talk to as well. I mean, Alec Ferguson, my times in Aberdeen, obviously I interviewed Alec Ferguson a lot, and you were never quite sure how you were going to find him. He would put you in your place, and he worked the media really well in the same way that he worked the dressing room, I think, and he kept everybody on edge, and you could see why he was so successful. I mean, it was well planned, well thought out. Nice man as well, a really caring side to him, as well as the sort of hairdryer reputation that he's always had. Graham Souness, I remember when he arrived at Rangers, interviewing him, he didn't suffer fools. He still doesn't when you see him doing his punditry on Sky. And you had to be on your game when you were interviewing him. You really had to be on your game, otherwise he would give you a yes/no answer if that's what your question begged. Or if you didn't have another question ready and you hesitated at all, he'd be off. So, so you had to be ready with your questions. You had to be on your game, basically, to tackle him. But it was really satisfying to get a good interview with him. He was somebody, and still is, that if he says something, it tends to mean something. He's got that presence, that aura about him. It was a challenge, and these are the sort of challenges that hopefully make you better at what you do, because you're not going to find too many tougher people than the likes of Fergie or Souness or Gordon Strachan, or these lively sort of people. So you've got to counter them by performing well as well.
Absolutely. Gosh, you've had an incredible career.
I'm thinking of keeping it going as well.
Well, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I'm really lucky to have done what I've done, because I've always loved football. I played football just at an amateur sort of level. I've always loved.
Did you?
I've always loved football, yeah. I mean, so to be working in it. I mean, I've never done a serious job in my life. Never done a real job in my life. So I feel really, really fortunate in that regard, and loved every minute of it. It's interesting, sort of going back through and reminding myself, even because I'd forgotten about some of the things that you've sort of triggered something in my head there. But I'm kind of looking forward as well, and I'm at this stage just looking forward, like you are, to getting football back and to getting back in amongst it again, because it means so much to so many people. And so many people will be suffering at the moment because of a lack of football, because it's a great release for everybody. And people are climbing the walls at the moment for all sorts of reasons, but getting football back will be one good thing, and we're all looking forward to it.
Yeah, we just don't envy those having to make the decisions on how it's going to come back.
No, I'd rather the professionals took care of that one, because there is no easy answer, and you can understand why everybody is arguing their point at the moment and having their own view about how it should all restart and how the season should end and all the rest of it. But yeah, like you say, I'll happily let somebody else adjudicate for that one.
Absolutely. Rob, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Lovely to talk to you, Ali.